Hi, everybody. How are you doing today? Everyone, it's good to see everyone this evening as we get ready for this wonderful virtual masterclass where we will be focusing on networking on LinkedIn, attaining the right mentors, and maximizing your opportunities within various associations and organizations. I'm so happy to see everyone today. Again, it's a pleasure and honor to be on this wonderful panel with these wonderful panelists that we have today. I know it's going to be an exciting and an incredible session. So I want to welcome you all here today as we get ready for this incredible virtual masterclass. Before we get started, just want to share some information with all of you. First and foremost, for those of you, my PowerPoint messed up. It's okay, we'll get it back. All right. Okay. There we go. Sorry about that, everyone. We're working on it. We're working on it. Sorry about that mess up. All right, all right, real quick. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is, again, Dr. Joshua Fredenberg. I'm a national speaker, author of 7 books, leadership, diversity, and inclusion consultant, and president of the Circle of Change Leadership Conference, which many of you are familiar with if you've been a part of these virtual masterclasses over the past 2 months. And for those that are not familiar with it, this is a 3-day leadership experience that we do each year in LA and New York. And the goal of it is really simple. It's to help students not only discover the leader from within, but ultimately the professional and leadership skills necessary to align career leadership success and the inspiration to make an impact in their community, their nation, and their world. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary this past November, which was absolutely incredible, transformational, and amazing. And we're planning to do it in New York this past fall, but then COVID-19 happened, and so we had to cancel for the health and safety of not only the students, but also the professionals that come out. And then as we're moving into the fall, as many of you know, if you're based in California, all the Cal State schools are going online for the fall semester. And so our conference was planned to be hosted at Cal State Fullerton, which is a Cal State school. And so we're unable to do it there this year. And so we decided to go virtual. So for the first time ever, the Circle of Change Leadership Conference will be virtual this fall. It's going to be over 2 weekends. Although you see 2 dates, we're actually going to make it six days. So it'll be a 6-day conference so we can spread out sessions and make sure that students and professionals don't become what I call Zoom fatigue. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that, but it's going to be incredible. It's going to be awesome. We have a variety of platforms that we're going to be incorporating into this conference. And if you are a professional, or if you're responsible for students, I encourage you to have them register as soon as possible. I'm looking forward to be amazing. It's going to be incredible. And so we're totally excited about that and hope that many of you are able to participate and ultimately provide that access for students. For anyone that knows about the Circle of Change Leadership Conference, what's most important to us is students and impacting students' lives, specifically culturally diverse and first generation students. So we're excited about that. But the reason you're here, most importantly, is to get into this panel today. So I'm ready to get into it. And so we're gonna begin by, first of all, introducing our incredible panelists. Again, I believe they're gonna shed some knowledge, some insight that's gonna be very valuable to each and every one of you that is listening. So we're gonna get right into it. Our first panelist is from the Bay Area. His name is Oscar Garcia. Oscar, why don't you introduce yourself and let us get to learn a little bit more about you.
Yes, no, thank you, Joshua. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm located in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I started my own company, Aspida Consulting, almost 5 years ago. We focus on two things. One is doing consulting work in community relations, workforce development, and then the second part is doing training, whether it's for students or professionals in the area of how to use LinkedIn, your professional branding, social selling. And I'm a first generation professional. I'm the actually only one out of 10 siblings that went off to college. My dad was a dishwasher. My mom worked in housekeeping. And I struggled a lot trying to figure out kind of how to get into the corporate world. And one of the things that I realized, that there's something that I wish I could have changed a long time ago, was to believe in myself. So what I teach people is really, I empower you so opportunities come to you. That's what I do.
Awesome. Well, Oscar, we're so happy to have you. Thank you so much for being a part of this incredible session today. Our next panelist, she's been to 3 of the last Circle of Change Leadership Conferences in Los Angeles, California. Christina D. Hatcher, welcome. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here. As Josh knows, I'm always incredibly passionate about helping the next generation pursue their career dreams. So super excited to be here. I currently head up people and culture for a company called Acceleration Community of Companies. It's a media, marketing, and communications company that essentially operates as a holding company, really focused on acquiring other companies in the areas of marketing, media, and communications, and leveraging the services of those companies for our clients. Prior to Acceleration, I actually just started March the 2nd, so right before the pandemic. Such an interesting time to start a new job. Prior to Acceleration, I worked for a creative artist agency, entertainment, media, sports representation company. I was overseeing recruiting. I was there for about 5 years, oversaw recruiting initially for film, television, and foundation. And then I created their first inclusion and diversity role at the company. And then prior to that, I worked for a company called Morgan Samuels in executive search. So my background is primarily recruitment, talent acquisition, and inclusion and diversity before moving over to overseeing all of people and culture for Acceleration.
Awesome. Welcome, Chrissy. We're so happy to have you. So grateful that you're able to take some time today to be part of this panel. Our next panelist is Rashawn Wilson from LinkedIn. Rashawn, welcome to the panel. Introduce yourself and take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rashawn Wilson. I'm currently employed at LinkedIn. Technically, I'm a diversity strategist. I work within executive recruiting, kind of building strategies to figure out how can we diversify our employee engagement, as well as bringing in more people on the leadership side that are people of color. I've been in tech for about 7 years, started in higher ed, transferred into media. My concentration, of course, just like Christina, all people, all talent. But my concentration, of course, is diversity, inclusion, and belonging. I've worked at Havas Media, LinkedIn now, and previously I was at Salesforce, salesforce.org, and Facebook.
So welcome, Rashawn. Welcome. It's so good to have you. Thank you so much for being a part of the panel as well. Our next panelist is Yai Vargas. Yai, welcome from New York. Introduce yourself and let us get a little more understanding about who you are.
Thank you for having me. So I graduated with a degree in advertising and marketing communications from FIT in New York City. shortly thereafter, I started using my language skills, which is Spanish and Portuguese, to be able to secure a job. And so I spent about 16 years in corporate America, helping organizations figure out how to do business, how to create programs and services and projects for multicultural communities. I absolutely loved doing that. I loved it so much that I saw that there was an opportunity to be a consultant, so that now I help organizations who don't have a diversity department or an employee resource group, which you'll hear us talk a lot about today. And I also have a community for Latinas and women of color. It's called The Latinista. We develop professional development workshops so that these women can understand how to professionally brand themselves, specifically for getting a new job or upskilling, learning how to do X, Y, and Z, so that it helps them find their next big career opportunity and getting paid for it. And so I'm really excited to be here with you all, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. I hope you all have some really great questions for us.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Yeah, awesome. And our next panelist to introduce, he's head of employment relations, Prathan Pal, representing, oh, he doesn't have the hat on no more. I was going to say representing Alpha Alpha, but Prathan, welcome, man. How you doing?
How's everyone doing? I'm Prathan. I'm in Los Angeles, California. I'm currently the head of labor employee relations at Instacart. Prior to coming to Instacart, I was with Google, and before that, Nike and Coca-Cola. A lot of the work that I focus on is the HR space, employee and labor relations. And so on the side of that, I also have my own community called Black in HR, in which we help Black HR professionals developing their careers and to grow strategies in the network. So I'm excited to be here and looking forward to contribute.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much. I'm really excited to get into this discussion. We're going to get ready to get into our first question. And our first question that I want to ask each of you is really simple. Now, really quickly, if you're here, I would love to know where you're from. So if you can put in the chat, just want to know where people are coming from. I know on our last sessions, we had people from all across the country. So let us know what city you're representing. Let us know what state you're representing. I mean, represent. I'm in Miami, Florida right now. We got the Bay Area. We got New York. We got LA. But where are you coming from? Make sure you represent that as well. And represent your college as well. If you're representing a college on here, we'd love to know what college you're coming from as well. But we're going to get into our first question. And the first question is this. What has been your greatest networking success story that helped you through your career through the use of LinkedIn or involvement with a professional association or employee resource group? I'll open it up whoever wants to go first. We'd love to know what has been your greatest success story? What has transpired where, like, if someone was to hear it today, like, man, that was amazing. Whoever would like to go first, take it away.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll go first. For me, actually, I used LinkedIn to get my first opportunity with Nike. I saw a post on LinkedIn from one of the ER directors saying, "Hey, we need someone with experience." So I sent her an email, and she responded the next day. And at that point, I started to understand the power LinkedIn has. And so that's one thing. That's the only way I look for jobs is to network on LinkedIn.
Wow, awesome. What about you, Yai? What is one of your stories?
Well, similar to that, I saw an opportunity about 10 years ago when I was looking for work. I saw it at an organization that I wasn't too familiar with, but I loved the work that was described in the job posting. And so what I started to do was connecting with every single person that worked at that company, specifically in that department. And so the job that I was going for was a manager of multicultural strategies. So I looked for exactly that title within that company on LinkedIn, and I started adding people like crazy. Eventually, I connected with the person that would soon be my boss for 9 years. And so that was really great. It was something that I took into my own hands. Of course, I applied, but was directly messaging people to say, I've just applied to this opportunity. I think I'd be great for it. I'd love to talk to you next week. How do you like your experience there? And it worked out.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. What about you, Oscar? I feel like you had something to say.
Well, I want to share a networking story, not necessarily related to LinkedIn, but it is a networking story. So about 15, 17 years ago, I was married, my kids were little, and, you know, just doing the normal thing that, you know, when you have young kids, you're doing, right? You're working, taking care of your family. Anyways, with family and friends, we got involved here in the community, and we ended up starting a nonprofit that was totally volunteer-based. That got me out into the community, meeting new people. And one of the persons that I met was the superintendent of the local elementary school district. Well, fast forward about 2 years later, I'm looking to make a transition from tech into something else. He's on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, and he says, and he encourages, basically he convinces me to apply for the Chamber CEO position. I had no idea what a Chamber of Commerce did, and let alone even be qualified for the opportunity. My competition had 25 years of Chamber experience, was the interim Chamber CEO, and the board loved her. Like, what chances do I have? I have a better chance of buying a lottery ticket on Saturday and winning that than getting hired. But I got hired. And the reason I share that with a lot of folks is because right now, the way the economy is, aren't a lot of internship, let alone job opportunities. And those opportunities that might exist, sometimes you have to work for quote unquote free, volunteer, whatever. Do it anyways. Go out there, because I gave up my time, my precious time. I took away time from my kids when they were little to go help other people. So I took my eyes off myself, put it on the needs of others, and I was blessed later on with that networking opportunity that eventually propelled me into what I'm doing today.
Wow, that's amazing. That's incredible. And there's so much more to talk about with that story. Christina, what do you have to share? What's been your story?
Yeah, similar to Oscar, so not necessarily related to LinkedIn specifically, but just in terms of networking overall. And actually a part of it is related to LinkedIn. I think sometimes people are so focused on, I'm trying to get a job and I'm trying to get something, as opposed to how can you help people in terms of like the position that you're trying to get into, or at a company where you're trying to work. And I had just moved to LA from Birmingham, Alabama, moved with $300 to my name, like knew, you know, no one except a friend, and discovered this thing called LinkedIn. And at the time, I thought that I wanted to, you know, be a head of diversity and inclusion prior to moving into recruitment. And so I saw, you know, to be frank, I saw a Black man named Paul Martin, who was the head of diversity and inclusion at Sony. And I looked at his position and I was like, that's exactly what I would like to do. Like, I essentially saw a blueprint in terms of the things that I would like to be doing professionally. So I just reached out to him. I was like, I have nothing to lose. I'm just going to reach out. I'm going to be professional. And, you know, I just said, hi, I just recently moved here from LA or from Alabama. Would love to hear any advice that you have on pursuing career opportunities in the diversity and inclusion space. And if there's anyone that you recommend I should connect with. I didn't even put the pressure on him to say, you know, can you give me a few minutes of your time? I just said, do you recommend, you know, anyone that I should connect with? And, you know, he responded within a day. So I think sometimes we kind of hold ourselves back because it is quite intimidating to reach out to someone that you don't know. But if you're reaching out with good intentions and just saying, you know, kind of taking the pressure off of them and just asking for a connection or just any sage advice that may help you, they may reach out. And it totally came full circle because years later, while I was at CAA, myself and my CHRO ended up in a meeting with him. So it's just so crazy how, you know, those things happen and your paths end up crossing again.
Wow, that's amazing. That's an incredible story. Wow. Rashawn, I'm going to come to you, and I want to put a little spin on this because I know you're a diversity strategist. And so in relate to diversity and making it more diversified within your company, what are some success stories that you have experienced as far as men and women of color using their network or using these platforms to position themselves for success?
In full transparency, that's a tricky answer.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, I'm fully transparent and fully real. There have been studies that show that people of color have less of an opportunity, of course, when using platforms like my own platform, the company I work for. The thing that we need to, that I feel is beneficial, like everyone says, just connecting with the right people. Not just connecting with the people that are in our networks, because a lot of times as a Black man, like I connect more so with people that look like me. And sadly, we aren't the ones that have all of the opportunities or that are giving the opportunities in corporate America. So using LinkedIn to actually connect with the right people that are in roles that you want, both Black, Latino, and or someone that is non-color, make sure you do that 3-prong approach and connect with all 3, because you will be able to tell a different story to each person because of your experience and your connectivity with them. I think I've heard stories of success, including mine, by doing that. I am lucky and blessed enough to have never applied for a job in the last like 10 years. All of my jobs have come from LinkedIn by me connecting with people, me positioning and branding myself in a way that makes me a lot more marketable, and just connecting with random people that are in the positions that I want. My job from Facebook, I'm grateful for Courtney Aaron for reaching out to me primarily because of my LinkedIn profile, and the same thing with Manuel here at LinkedIn. Those are the only reasons why I have the roles that I have here, because of my branding and because of my networking outside of my personal network.
And I just want to piggyback off of that. I actually received my current position off of a reach out from LinkedIn, and I wasn't originally interested. Like, I never thought of myself as being a head of HR. I was all recruitment, talent acquisition, diversity and inclusion. That's my thing. That's my specialty. And then I was reached out to by a recruiter on LinkedIn. I was not actively looking, and, you know, took the time to have the conversation and was opened up to, you know, a different opportunity that I wouldn't have thought of for myself had that reach out not happened. So I agree with Rashawn. You have to be, you know, open to receiving those opportunities and those reach outs. And that does also come from having a broad network.
Wow.
Can I answer the question? I'm sorry. At the same time, y'all, I'm reading the comments too. The 3-prong approach, excuse me. So what I meant by the 3-prong approach, for, let's just say, me as a Black man, I'm going to look at people that are Black, honestly, and that's just me being strategic, that have the roles that I want, or that are at the company that I want to get into. At that same time, I'm not just going to concentrate on someone Black. I'm going to find someone who's just in the role, and more than likely they will be a person that is not of color. So that's a 2-prong approach to reach out to that person. The third person I usually reach out to is someone that's in talent. And that way I can connect with someone who might not be hiring for that role or a role that I want, but someone that's within that vertical or that org that can kind of like advocate for me as I build that relationship and that network with that person.
Wow, I hope you all caught that. I mean, he just dropped some really vital information. There's just so much that was being discussed, and I want to just keep it moving. I want to deal with LinkedIn first, because first of all, Rashawn said he hasn't looked for a job in 10 years. So just let that sink in for a moment. Has not looked for the job, found him through his LinkedIn profile. Just let that sink in for a moment. But I want to move into this next question. Yai, LinkedIn Ninja, Rashawn, you work at LinkedIn, Oscar, you consult in LinkedIn. So I want to just ask a question for everyone. What strategies can professionals use in order to position themselves for career success on LinkedIn? There's a lot of videos out there. There's a lot of things that people talk about. But I want to hear some practical things that people can take away from them and apply immediately once they get off this virtual class today.
I think one of the things that I look for specifically is the about section in your profile. You want to make sure that you generalize and summarize what you've accomplished, what you're looking forward to doing, and then also having a call to action. So when I add you on LinkedIn and I'm reading your about section, I want to be able to say, okay, Diana does X, Y, and Z. What does she need me to send to her? Is it a mentor? Is it a client? Is it money? Is it advice? Is it a mentee? Is it she's looking to build a community? Right? So be very clear about what it is that you want someone to help you accomplish, so that I'm not left wondering, okay, great, now I'm connected. What does this person need from me? So that's really important to me. When I look at someone's page, you have to have a call to action. how can I help you when we connect?
So Prathar put something in the chat about best practice. So I want to bring him on. Share what you said, Prathar.
Yeah, I think one thing that I do is I every day connect with 10 HR professionals or recruiters in my field. For one thing, it does allow me to see, it allows me to see the roles that they post or that they like or that they share. But it also, gives me visibility on potential recruiters in my field. So should I'm ready to make my next move, I can simply, I already know how to connect in that particular company because I've already added 100 people in the last month that are all in HR. So that's definitely something that I would consider or suggest everyone do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. Connect. He said on a daily basis. Oscar, what have you found? What's been some of your tactics? Because we actually met. As a matter of fact, I've met about 3 people on this chat session through social media, through LinkedIn. And Oscar, we had a conversation via LinkedIn. What are some of your practices that you've
Well, the one thing, I mean, and so far some great tips as well. I think there's multiple things, but the one thing that I will share and encourage people to do is share content. A lot of people treat LinkedIn like a gym membership. Sign up for it, and then you don't show up anymore. Or if you do, you stop showing up after February 22nd, okay? And the reason for sharing content is because, one, you're sharing what areas or things or industries that you're interested in. Number 2, it gives people an opportunity to comment on your post and be able to either build or strengthen your network. And then also you keep top of mind. Now I'm gonna go even one step further in terms of sharing content. Share your vulnerability. Now that's a scary thing, especially for us minorities, right? Because, right, the word minority has a negative connotation. If you look at the very first article that I ever wrote on LinkedIn, it's titled, I Am a Minority. It's a little bit about my immigrant story, but it's really, I talk about how anyone that's ever accomplished anything of significance is a minority. How many people win the gold medal? 1,000? No, there's only one person in that particular sport, okay? And the thing is that most young professionals, you guys share your vulnerability on Facebook and Instagram, right? And TikTok. You make these videos where, guys, you're sharing your 6-pack, right? And then, other folks are sharing the booty shots, right, on Instagram. And then you come to LinkedIn and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a professional platform. What do I do? Speak from your heart. Because at the end of the day, if 2 people have the same skills, they're gonna hire someone that matches the corporate culture or your values, that chemistry. And so by therefore sharing your personality is really what I'm saying. When your vulnerability, it's a connection here. So share content, be vulnerable.
It's interesting that you say that. I actually was we did our New York one. I guess we did our New York one about a year and a half ago. And we had a wonderful panelist that talked about, when it comes to hiring, a lot of people can do the job. A lot of people have the skill set. But at the end of the day, one of the key questions is, are you likable? Does someone want to get on a 15-hour road trip with you, going across the country and having a conversation with you? Does that really, no, are you that kind of person? So I think that kind of brought that to my remembrance. I saw Yai and Rashawn talking about the visibility or the checklist. My good friend, Dr. Tierney Bates, asked a question as far as the checklist, how to gain visibility on LinkedIn, how to be seen on LinkedIn. So, whoever wants to answer that question, I think that's a really, really good question.
I'm gonna let y'all take most of it because she has all the answers. The one thing that I will say that will help you kind of what a practice, like you have to start building your network first and building your content. That's just going to be the basic to get you the visibility that you need, and make sure your content is relative to the role that you want, the org that you plan to sit in, and also the industry that you work within. Those are the 3 main things that I'll say to make sure your content is directed towards. Now, as a person of color, it's added an additional piece because you want to make sure that you're still being your authentic self and presenting your way that speaks to your community, so your companies can see that you're not linear and that you're not just looking at it from a linear business POV. But as businesses expand and as we try to figure out how to work during this pandemic, they're going to look at how you get into those communities that you physically can't walk into now. And they're going to need that perspective from people of color. It sounds like they're going to be using you, and companies use us all. So just keep that in mind when you're building the content. And I'll let y'all take it, the main part.
No, I love this. I agree with all of that. I think the only thing that I would add is when working on your professional brand, if someone mentions your name, what type of thought leader will you want them to know about you and who you are and what you talk about? And so for me, whenever someone mentions my name, they always think of, oh, Jai's the LinkedIn ninja. Oh, Jai develops programs for Latinas and women of color. Jai also does a lot when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so if you're not yet sure on how you'd like to position yourself as a thought leader, start with what you're passionate about, what you'd love to do, even if you're not getting paid to do it. What can you naturally speak about or share articles about so that other people will start to position you as that thought leadership expert? And so Rashawn is absolutely right. Do all of those things and make sure that you're strategizing against, okay, what type of professional do I want to be seen as? And you don't have to come up with your own very unique articles. Maybe some of us here aren't natural writers. You can grab an article every week from the New York Times or from HuffPost and just post them, tell everyone your opinion, or start the conversation and say, hey, look at this new content I found on professional branding from the New York Times. And I'll tag Rashawn and I'll be like, what do you think about this? I've never positioned myself like this, right? And then the more you start connecting with individuals that do similar work that you want to do, you'll see that the conversation starts flowing very naturally. So yeah, I love everything that you're doing, Rashawn, and do all of those things.
Exactly. Remember, y'all, LinkedIn is not, let me be careful saying this. LinkedIn is not only the resume. I have to be, but LinkedIn is just not your resume. LinkedIn is a social media site. It's just an enterprise social media site. So think of it the same way you present content on Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest. It's the same thing. It's not just let me set up a profile and leave it there and pray that someone comes and finds me. You will need to engage with people. You will need to engage with your content. That's the only way that you'll be able to get the attention that you probably want.
And I'll
That's a
just
great
say,
point. Oh, sorry.
just adding to Yai's point around, what are people saying about you? Leverage the recommendation section on LinkedIn. Like, that is something that I think people forget about so much. And again, it's this intimidation factor. I don't want to ask anyone for anything. If you've interned with someone, if you've ran an errand, if you've helped someone in any capacity, if you've worked in a position with someone that you admire and revere, and you believe you've done a great job and you've received great feedback, reach out to them and ask for a recommendation. And also, you can compose what that recommendation looks like as well. Like, I feel like another thing that's tough is, someone will reach out to me for a recommendation. We haven't necessarily worked together a lot, so I can't speak to all of their work experience, but I know they're a great person. I know that they've had great work ethic. So why don't you share a couple of bullet points with me that you would like me to include in that recommendation? And I'm happy to, write that recommendation. So don't just reach out and ask for a recommendation, but try to help make that person's job and life easier in terms of giving you that recommendation. But that's a section that is just, super helpful. And then I would say also, just on the side of LinkedIn not being the resume, correct, like Rashawn is so correct, it's not a resume. I will say that what I've seen on the recruitment side a lot of times, though, is that the LinkedIn doesn't always match the resume. So try to make sure that your LinkedIn page matches your resume, and that the same positions that are on your LinkedIn are on your resume, because recruiters are looking at both. Like, we live on LinkedIn. So if we're looking at both and there's not alignment, we're going to question, why is the information not accurate in both places?
10 million % as a recruiter, I specifically only use LinkedIn first because I do all outsourcing, right? And if I engage with you via LinkedIn, and then we get into the point where we're in the interview process and you finally give me your resume and it doesn't add up. It's totally different or not the same. From an ethical standpoint, I'm questioning, hey, who are you really? Like, it's not your resume, but they should be the same. Like, your LinkedIn should read, like, it's a story. Let me read it. Let me not see all the bullet points, but let me read it so I can get an understanding of who you are as a person. Your resume is going to be all about business, for sure. So, but they should match. And if they don't match, that's problematic. So make sure the two are very similar.
I want to go to this real quick. And I love, we're talking about resumes. Prathon, we're part of an HR group on Facebook, and people rave about his work with resumes. I mean, they, like, when he tells someone do my resume, they automatically mention him. And I'm a firm believer when multiple people are talking about someone, they're probably really good at what they do. So Prathon, when we deal with resumes, real quick, what are 5 key tips that you offer your clients or that you offer people when it comes to advice? And how does that translate into a LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, great question. I think that a few things that I would imagine Rashawn and Christina would agree, that it needs to be data focused. It needs to be strategic. It needs to show some real key measurables that you've impacted. So, you know, if you're a recruiter, you should be able to show, you know, how many that you've been able to turn over to the company in a percentage amount of time. Like, whatever your field is needs to have some key metrics involved that will show true value in your work. Your resume also should not have a lot of random colors. Your photos not necessary, anything like that. We should definitely have, if you're going to have a summary at the top, include the title of the job that you're looking for. So if you're applying for an HR journalist role, your resume should speak that I'm a journalist. This is what I've done. And it should be very consistent with the work that you're trying to do.
So those are great points. Oh, I think someone else goes. Christina, you got something to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say thank you. Like, me and Rashawn and I were both just like, thank you for saying that about the picture and the colors. Like, look, if you are applying for a position in advertising or marketing or a position in the creative realm, sure, you have a little bit of flexibility and leeway to be creative with your resume. But in general, recruiters are very distracted by color. If you are not applying to be, if you're not auditioning to be an actor, we don't need to see your picture. We want to remove as much bias from the process as possible. Go to your LinkedIn, we can see your picture on LinkedIn, but we really want to remove as much bias from the process as possible. And the pictures on the resume, they just simply aren't necessary, and they can be very distracting. I would just say proofread your resume many times, because what you want to make sure of is that you're not sending your resume over. This is your work product. So this is the first time essentially that someone outside of LinkedIn, that a recruiter is getting to know about you and your background. So if you don't care enough to ensure that that work product is solid and as polished as possible, then right off the bat, there are going to be many assumptions that are made, and the recruiter is probably just going to go to the next resume, to be very frank, because we do not have a lot of time. So we're trying to find the person that is paying attention to detail, that cares enough about their work product so that that can translate over into whatever position that we're trying to hire for. So give your resume to a couple of different people that will have a critical eye and not just tell you what you want to hear. Like, anyone knows if they give me a resume, I will butcher it. Like, I literally will butcher it. But I do that out of like care, because I want to make sure that you are positioning yourself in the best light as you're applying for that coveted position that you want.
I want to share. I'm gonna get ready to move it to another question, but I do want to share. So I've been in this process of really studying digital marketing, just because as a speaker, as a consultant, that's just the wave of the future, especially if that's what you do. And I've been doing a lot of LinkedIn profiles and really investigating different videos. So I came across this one video I thought was pretty awesome. And I thought I'd share a couple of things that they shared. Number one, they talked about sharing your story. So when you do your about, make sure you can include your story in that, because your stories is what draws people. So how can you not only just create what you do, but somehow people get an idea of exactly who you are. Another thing they talked about on LinkedIn, this is what it was an HR recruiter talked about, that at least 4 days a week, post something. But you got to be very strategic in how you post things, but post stuff. Also, they said live videos get more visibility than actually using YouTube or different videos to post online. Another thing that was really intriguing to me is she talked about every week commenting on 4 to 6 posts. So when you comment, really commenting on people and sharing information as far as when you see posts and stuff like that. And then another thing she said I thought was really interesting is she said when you do I believe it's your headliner or when it describes who you are, she talked about saying, obviously what you do, what company you work for, but this is the key piece. What value do you bring? So when someone is going to hire you, when someone's going to look you up, what is that value? What is that unique value that you'll bring to the organization? But I want to move over to this next conversation because I think this is pretty important. I did a career leadership conference at a university in Delaware right before COVID-19 happened. And one of the things I talked about was the importance of networking, i.e. why we decided we wanted to put on this masterclass. And one of the things that was interesting, I began to talk about employee resource groups. And there were a few students in my audience that didn't even know that companies had employee resource groups. So there may be some students or maybe some advisors. I think everyone can talk about this. I don't know if I feel like this is your bread and butter, creating them and everything. And Rashawn as well. I want to know what are they? How do people maximize career opportunities within their employee resource groups or their professional associations? Whoever wants to go. Oscar, I guess.
Wait, go ahead, Oscar, or go, you.
All right, I'll go. You're the ERG master, but I'll talk a little bit about my involvement. So for those of you who are students within the chat right now, and you've never heard of ERGs, employee resource groups, they're basically affinity groups that these large or small organizations have. Any employee can be part of them. The typical ones are Latino resource groups, African American, South Asian, LGBT, women, millennials, veterans, you name it. Typically, organizations have from 8 to 12 different resource groups. These groups are put together so that the employees involved can develop career professional skills. I've actually taken part in creating and leveraging a lot of ERGs in the past. And I think one of the things that I would share with you all is if you're looking to get into an organization and you find out that they have employee resource groups, you could reach out to a number of people that are within those groups to be able to help you understand how the work culture is at that organization. A lot of times, people that are working within those groups are looking forward to mentoring someone who wants to work at that organization. I actually do a lot of work with ERGs and help connect them to students just like yourselves. And so, for example, the groups at HBO or Viacom or NBC in which I work with, I connect the people within those ERGs to students who want to work there. And so they just take 30 minutes of their week and they share some of the type of work that they do at NBC, Viacom, or Universal, and share a little bit about the work culture. ERGs are phenomenal. I know that Rashawn's done a ton of work with Black ERGs, and maybe Rashawn, you can share with us a little bit about how the students on here can leverage those without them being currently employed yet.
So most effective ERGs or affinity groups, in my opinion, they are there to provide a better culture internally for the employees, but a lot of the programmatic work that we do is all external, going into our own communities and making sure that we're giving back to them, making sure that we're providing them with educational resources, financial resources, for me in technological resources. So I think if you can find one of the leaders, if you're a student, find one of the leaders or someone that works at a company that you're targeting, figure out who their ERG leaders are. Sometimes at larger companies, you have local ERG leaders as well as your international ERG or affinity group leaders. Figure out who those people are and see if they know or if they're able to kind of like, not cultivate you, but be a second mentor or someone that you need. And that way they can help kind of like position their ERG to help you out or help the community that you live in or the school that you're attending, because there are a lot of partnerships that a lot of the Black and Latino ERGs are looking for. It's just finding the right ones that we can partner with and provide our resources to, because we have budgets internally And it's not for us to just keep and use for ourselves, but it's for us to go back into the community.
That's good. I want to. That's a great point. That's a great point. Thank you all. So I want to go to you, Oscar. You're a part of a professional association. You're working with companies, so you're dealing with ERG groups, and you speak to students, and you're a first generation. So there's so many different levels. And so I want to ask you really quick, Oscar. Students getting ready to graduate. Number one, I think they should find an ERG group, and I think they should find a professional association. I say in my new book, I tell them to join multiple associations. But what I want to ask you, Oscar, what is your advice about that to graduates? How do they get involved? But more importantly, how do they maximize their opportunities in these groups?
Yeah, so first of all, you guys, like I told you, my natural personality is an introvert, and I've changed, okay? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. But here's the thing is, as an introvert, I look at meeting new people or being part of an ERG group, networking, as trying to make a friend. And I'm genuinely interested in making friends. I actually looked at all the panelists. I went onto their profiles. Yeah, I happen to be connected now for a couple of years. Christina and we connected on LinkedIn, and it's a starting block, right, to develop those relationships. All I can do and control is to reach out my hand and say, hi, I'm Oscar Garcia, if you want to be my friend. If they don't, go find someone else. Now, in terms of actually maximizing the groups, one of the things that I would also add is look to get involved in some kind of a leadership capacity within that organization. These ERG groups kind of remind me of when I was in college. I was in a fraternity. And that, in a way, was kind of like my support group, you know, my fraternity brothers in college. I was a secretary. I mean, taking freaking notes, okay, which I didn't even do a good job. But still, it got me in this sort of executive committee that access to people and other organizations, groups, or leaders within the university. And same thing here with these ERG groups. You get involved in some kind of a leadership role, you're going to have even greater access, a greater voice, not to mention the fact that it is a learning experience. And the last thing I want to say is don't be afraid to fail, you guys. So what if you were the crappiest secretary like me? So what? The fact that I pushed myself out of the my comfort zone, guess what? The next opportunity, I push myself even more and more. And that's another reason how an introvert can become a public speaker.
I love that. I'm so glad you talked about that. Praython, I think you had something to say.
ERGs are great. I've always been in them, even back when I was living in Atlanta. I would say the best ERG I've been with was we had an amazing group where someone's loud. We had Sneaker Ball, a large yearly party involving all Jordan brand, all of Nike, and it was really cool. One thing I can tell you though, I joined all ERGs. I'm allied to everyone just because you never know who can help you in that next stage. Even if I don't identify with that particular organization, I join just to be supportive, show up to their events, volunteer. You just never know how you can build relationships simply by joining other people's ERGs.
That's awesome. I want to, Rashawn, you got something?
No, I was going to agree on that. Once you get into a company, or if you're already currently at a company, don't just join the ERG if you're Latino, just don't join the Latino ERG. Like the same way that I need allies that are non-Black and non-Latino, accessibility, like people that are differently able, they need our assistance also. And not only just from, just being an ally perspective, but also from a networking perspective. Like we all have to work together to kind of like get ourselves to where we all need to be. And without that, we're all going to fail.
I got to move on. I want to move on to the next question, but before I get there, it keeps coming up. I'm gonna come back to one later. I know Christina had a question. How do you start an ERG within higher education? I'll come back to that later. But I thought this would be interesting. If you don't work for the company, can people still get involved with ERG events? Yes
and no. So most ERGs and affinity groups, they have internal events and external events. The external events are open to everyone. How to get involved, again, you're going to have to find those people that are part of those ERGs or follow them on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn has that capability where you can follow organizations and companies when they're posting. A lot of ERGs in larger companies also have Twitter pages and Instagram pages. Like follow those pages just to get in with them, to understand what they're doing in the community. And then you have a lot of these group meetups and they'll advertise everything. Well, I don't know how it's going to be now, but like for the Bay, the best time to get in contact with any ERG is during Afrotech, because they are all present there and you're able to see every single ERG from every tech company and all of their events, and that's how you can get plugged in. So definitely use the first way now that we are all virtual. Like just figure out what those ERGs, go to the company's websites, find the names, find them on Twitter, find them on Instagram, find them on LinkedIn, follow them and attend all of their events.
I'm going to move on to this next question, but I think what's coming to me as I'm listening is, in this COVID-19, networking, connecting is so strategic. And it's so important. And I'm just thankful to have all of you on the panel, because I really think, now again, I speak to a lot of college students, and I'm thinking in my mind, many of them are going the traditional route when it comes to looking for a job. I saw that in the survey that we're doing, about 340 plus we have so far, and literally resources or connections was the least. And it's obvious as we're talking here that this is an important skill set. Not only do students need to hear, but that professionals need to be teaching students as well. Christine, I'm gonna come to you. We talked about this question earlier and everyone else can go through it, but we're gonna talk about mentorship, because we know that mentorship is important. We know that mentorship makes a difference. We know there's skills and there's challenges you may be able to avoid by having a mentor that you're listening to beforehand. But the question I always get is, how do I get a mentor? What types of mentors? Because again, I've heard, there's a mentor, there's peer mentors, then there can be sponsors. So Christina, start us off. How do I get a mentor?
Great. Okay. Do we have another hour? Wonderful. I'm going to get started. So this is something that I'm so passionate about, because I feel like mentors honestly have, really helped me in certain areas. So when I look at a mentor, and I think we need to back up and define what a mentor is, Josh, you alluded to sponsors as well. So when you think about a mentor, this is someone that has the ability to come into your life and literally be an architect of the career steps in your journey. When you think about a sponsor, that's traditionally someone where you are internal at your company and they are helping guide your steps throughout that company, as far as like making key introductions, putting you in the right rooms, like giving you access. That's something that a lot of people of color do not get, is that access. So they're helping provide that access so that you can be in the room and have a platform and your voice can be heard. They're promoting you in different conversations that are happening. So a lot, especially when you're inside a company, you want to get a sponsor. You want to get someone that is senior level, that is in a position that can help guide your career journey within that particular company and ensure that your name is, heard in the right rooms and provide that access. From a mentor standpoint, what I mean by the architect of those steps in your career journey is that you are essentially communicating, this is what I aspire to do. This is what I'm passionate about. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier, like you're communicating your passions, your goals, where you want to end up in life. And this mentor should be someone that you not only aspire to be in terms of their position, but as a human. Like they are someone that you aspire to emulate. A lot of times people get caught up in, I want to be a head of diversity and inclusion or whatever the position is. So you just go find someone that's in that position and you ask them to be your mentor. That is not how mentorship works. That's honestly one of the fails that I feel happens most often when it comes to mentorship. One, that puts a lot of pressure on someone. Like you may think that we're all just sitting here and we're like, I would love for somebody to come ask me to be a mentor. That puts a lot of pressure on them. What I would love is for someone to come ask me more about my journey, my background, how I've gotten here, any tips. And then from there, as we get to know each other, mention, I would love to have you continue pouring into me. I would love to have you continue help, me architect those steps in my career journey. Because for me personally, I've had mentors help in two key areas of my life. Skill development, yeah, I mentioned upskilling earlier. That's one area. And really helping me level up. So once I got into those coveted positions that I wanted, now I'm at a place where it's like, okay, how do I pivot So between CAA and ACC for me, that was a very critical point in my life where, you know, I know that I've attained a certain level of success, but I need someone who can help me figure out what that next level is. How do I continue leveling up? How do I continue challenging myself? What are the gaps? So that's one thing in terms of not being afraid to have someone call you out on what the gaps are. What are those areas of, you know, in your background that may not be there that you should be developing in order to get to that next position? So those are the things that are just so important. But I really want to emphasize, as you're reaching out and trying to find a mentor, so to speak, or someone to pour into you, these are organic relationships that happen. And the more organic it is, the better. I will tell you, I literally was having a conversation with a woman who, I'm gonna call her out, Karen Williams. She used to head up South Central. Well, she actually works for South Central Scholars Noonan right now, used to work for MLT. I worked with her on the business side. I never had any idea that she was going to end up being a mentor of mine. And we reconnected after she left MLT. We had drinks and dinner one night, and she just started pouring into me. I didn't ask her to be a mentor, but I realized, for those who believe in God, universe, higher power, I realized that God brought her into my life, specifically at a time where I needed someone to help me level up. And she became my mentor. I didn't ask her. I just said, I feel like you are the person that can truly help pour into me and help me think about, you know, how I continue leveling up. So those are just some things that are really, really important. Mentors can be sounding boards to you at critical points within your career. But just remember, like, you know, try to stay away, for all students, for all people that are even looking at us, like, I aspire to be you. I aspire to be me one day. Like, I used to aspire to be me. Again, I came from Alabama, $300 to my name, knew no one out here. And all I wanted to do was work in entertainment and, you know, build a path for myself. So just remember, we all started somewhere, but just like reach out, try to offer help, try to figure out a way that you can like help this person as opposed to constantly asking for something from them.
That's awesome. I love how you broke that down. Really quickly, I know Christina and Oscar are going to have to leave at 5 p.m. I'm on the Eastern Standard Time. If the others are okay, I definitely want to continue going because I think this is a great conversation. And I want to get to the questions as well. But real quick, Oscar, because I know you're about 5 minutes out. I don't know if anyone else is. Is there something you want to share in regards to mentorship as well?
Yeah, so I agree with Christina about the role of mentorship. What I encourage people to do is put together what I refer to as your dream team. And it's made up of 5 people. 1 is your mentor. Number 2 is your promoter. A promoter is someone that knows what you do, respects the skills, and is keeping an eye out for opportunities like that board member at the chamber that told me about that opportunity. Number 3, a connector. A connector is someone not necessarily that has an opportunity for you, but knows like-minded people or people that share similar values. And they're like, hey, Oscar, you and Josh should connect because you guys work with students. I don't know, something might come out of that. Awesome. Number 4 is a close friend. Now, we all know what a close friend is, but I'm going to give you the OG Oscar Garcia version of a close friend, okay? Listen, a close friend is someone that is willing to get butt naked honest with you, okay? If I'm screwing up, I want that close friend to tell me and stop me from doing stupid things, all right? And therefore, I need to have that thick skin and give him or her that permission. I'd rather have a broken leg than fall off the cliff and kill myself. And lastly, the 5th person is a coach. The difference between a mentor and a coach is, to use basketball as an analogy, Michael Jordan is a mentor. Steph Curry or LeBron James are a coach because they are in the game. The game has changed from what Jordan was playing. And therefore, nothing wrong with getting mentored by Jordan, but today's game is different. So you know what? LeBron James, Steph Curry, I'm all ears.
Awesome, awesome. I love it. I love it. Those are great points. I don't want to. What I've done right now is I'm putting LinkedIn in again, the information there. So if you want to connect with Oscar or Christina on LinkedIn, I would if I was you. That information's there. Rashawn, Prathon, and Yai. Hopefully you guys stay a little longer. But if you have to go, I totally understand. But I know Christina and Oscar have to get out of here. They have meetings coming up. So we're just so grateful for you two coming on here and sharing the wealth and sharing the knowledge. But I'm gonna throw it. Well, is there any last words, Christina or Oscar, real quick before I throw it to the other three that you want to leave?
Christina.
No worries. I'm gonna try to hang back for a few minutes. You know, I always get sucked back in, Josh. So I'm here
Okay. Oscar, what about you? I love it.
Yeah, thank you, you guys. And I apologize. I do have a call with the client at 2 here. But, you know, what I want to leave you with is, and it kind of goes back to what Rashawn was saying earlier about, and also Josh, about sharing your story. There are 3 things that have helped me over the years be able to share my authentic story without losing my identity and not giving a crap what anyone thinks. And the 3 things are, number 1, just be real. We all go through crap. Crap stinks, but it's also fertilizer. That's what manure is, right? Crap. And how we react to the challenges in life is our choice. If I share my story about, listen, this is a challenge I went through, this is a lesson that I've learned, this is how I overcame it, that is an empowering, inspiring story. It's not a woe is Oscar type of story. Number 2, be relatable. Listen, folks, I don't hang out with brown people. I don't hang out with white people. I don't hang out with rich people or poor people. I hang out with everyone. Everyone. Okay? Right now, there are 5 generations in the workforce. My daughter, who is Generation Z, is now in the workforce. And you know what? My grandparents, if they were still alive, would be in the workforce today, and everyone else in between. And then lastly, be respectful, folks. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Oscar. Awesome. Love you too. Thank you. Yai, Rashawn, Prathon, anything you want to add to this conversation about mentors? Anything you want to add?
Yeah,
I mean, they summed it up.
I do. There's a few things. You should never be the smartest person in the room or your circle. And when you realize that you are the highest achiever in your circle, then it's time to find a new circle. I would say this: whatever field you decide to go into, be consistent with that. Be consistent about where you apply, where you work, what cities you move to. Take a chance with your career and just don't plan it out. Another thing, as far as for me, I know my mentor is in my fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, and you know, ever since pledging back in 06, you know, I've always leaned on him. He's the CEO of the NCAA, and I'm always bouncing ideas off of him, just learning how to grow as a professional and how to navigate, you know, large organizations as a person of color, as a Black man. So make sure your mentor or whoever you surround yourself with is in your field or is knowledgeable about what you're trying to do, so that when they're pouring into you, it's coming from a place of knowledge, not just heartfelt emotion. You want someone who knows the potholes that you're about to run into so that you can help avoid those places.
It's a great point. That's awesome. That's awesome. One thing I wanted to share, and I think Christina talked about it a little bit. They said it covered everything else, but I think one of the things that I've realized is I believe it begins with identifying your purpose or whatever you're trying to do in life. And as you pursue that, I have found that people start to come across your path. I'll often say, they said the teacher will appear when the time is right. And so I have found in my journey, as I continue to grow on myself and work on myself to be the best that I can be to help other people in that journey, people just start appearing. And I have countless stories of things that have transpired just by just doing what I'm supposed to do. And then people appear. And again, when they just appear, you don't have to force it. You don't have to make it real tough. It's just an organic relationship. I know me and Yai, we have a mutual friend, and I'm just going to give her a shout out, Jessica Vasquez from Netflix. And I actually reached out to her like I did Rashawn and prayed for different panels. And she came to do a panel for us when we did an event at St. John's University. And from that moment, we just connected. It just was an organic relationship. And so she's always been a great asset as far as just helping me to do what I want to do. And I think that's just an example. It was just doing what I'm supposed to be doing and then being able to identify, here we go. So Yai or Rashawn, how do you identify if it's the right business professional relationship? Did I hear me? Uh-oh.
I don't
You
think
didn't hear me?
Wait, repeat the question.
Oh, how do you know if it's a good organic relationship as far as business is concerned? Like this is a good connection. This is a good mentor. Is there anything that you look for? Or it just happens.
Yeah, you got it.
I'd love to answer that. So I think one of the most important things that I do is when someone reaches out to me and says, hey, I'd love to pick your brain, maybe we can work together. What I do is an extreme amount of research on that person. I want to look at their Instagram, their Facebook, their LinkedIn, any art that they've written, because what I do know for sure is I don't want to be in the wrong company. Even though they may look a certain way online, it's really important for me to understand what their ethics and their values are. And so I always make sure that I keep in line with what my ethics and values are and what I'm trying to accomplish. And it could look a certain way for someone who says that they have similar interests and ethics and values, but their Instagram stories could say a very different story. And so I keep away from anyone that could damage my brand. I know for sure that I've been reached out to a number of people that do similar work as me within any community, and I've respectfully said, you know what, my plate is full at the moment. Maybe next year when I'm looking for other partnerships, I can reach out. But I know to stay away from some people who brand themselves a certain way, but I see through them. So I know who to stay away from.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Awesome. This has been amazing. Last question we're going to get to, COVID-19, looking for a job. What are some strategies? I think we've talked about it. Are there any other strategies that you want to share with those out there that are looking for a job, trying to position themselves in their career that maybe haven't been discussed over the past hour?
Yeah. If you're new to your field, this is an easy way to get some experience. I know we all had you see the memes where they want 5 years experience right out of college, which is not very logical. There's an easy way to get experience. You can simply get an internship, and it's not just finding one online. There are mom and pops all over the place that need volunteer help that could help you do that work. So like you have your state farms offices, your doctor's offices, your lawyer, attorney offices. These are places that are actual businesses, but probably have some employees that you can help volunteer some time, maybe 5 to 10 hours a week, to simply get some experience, some verifiable experience on your resume. So that's if you're trying to go into your next role after graduating, start this, prior to graduation or even after, and this will give you some verifiable experience for that first job out of college.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as we get ready to close, I just wanted to try, there's 2 questions that people keep bringing up. So I'll start here. It's come up over and over, so I want to make sure I answer the question. Within higher ed, there's not a lot of ERG groups, different space. Is there any suggestion or advice that you would provide professionals that would like to start an employee research group within their campus community?
Are we speaking from an employee in higher ed's perspective or a student?
An employee. I believe employee. Yeah.
It's the same thing. I think it's just as necessary to have them in higher ed, in any sector. One of the main points of having an ERG is to provide a community to kind of deal with situations that only affect that group of people. So I'm pretty sure the higher education system that you work within or that anyone works within is not 100% Caucasian males. So with that being said, there's always an opportunity to build out these affinity groups or ERGs at any company. If you need help, and I'm offering this, if you need help, you can feel free to reach out to me. I don't want to take up too much time to explain like how the different ways to set it up, but I don't think ERGs are limited to major corporations. Any place that you work that you stand in, and it's not just you as an individual by yourself, as an entrepreneur working at that company, build an ERG. It's great for culture and continued culture as you expand and build and bring in more people.
Amazing. Awesome. I hope you take advantage of that. Rashawn, I hope you take advantage of that. And my last question before we get ready to close out of this, someone came up with a question. Christina, I think you can talk to this. How do you transition from HR into diversity and inclusion work?
So the way that I did it more so, it was when passion meets purpose. Honestly, I did not initially aspire to be a head of inclusion and diversity. Like I said, when I was first trying to figure out what I even wanted to do with my career, it just seemed like something that could be interesting to me. But you know, to be very frank and candid, I went through an experience, and there was someone that asked a question. I just answered it live, but I went through an experience of navigating as an African American woman in a leadership position and being met with resistance that was not what my colleagues who were non-African American were experiencing. And so for me, it was unacceptable. It was the first time that I had experienced like blatant discrimination, especially in a corporate setting. And that was very tough for me. Again, I grew up in Alabama. So civil rights movement, like you would think that I would have experienced some form of that in Alabama. But I did not. So it was, instead of staying angry, I decided to turn that anger and those emotions into purpose, and asked to create a position. I identified a gap. So that's one way, like you can identify gaps in your company. Traditionally, people are always wanting someone to take on this type of work. Usually it happens in tandem, unfortunately, with another position. So you may be a recruiter and then someone says, hey, I want you to take on diversity and inclusion work. You may be in employee relations and someone says, hey, I want you to take this on. You can even be in marketing. There are people that have been in a variety of different positions. But I think it's important to speak up and ask to be involved in these types of initiatives, suggest, you know, whether it's a training session or whether it's just material or a speaker that you've heard of, the more vocal that you are about what the gaps are. So not just suggesting things that you've heard, you know, in terms of like this speaker, that person is great to come to our company, but actually thinking about your organization, your unique organization. What are the things that are unique to your org, whether it is bias training or whether it is, you know, leadership training. Leadership isn't always communicating in the best and most thoughtful way sometimes. There's always room for improvement in areas of opportunity. So I would just say, speak with your supervisor. That's what I did. I essentially wrote my own job description and I presented it to my supervisor and we had conversations, and I just said, would there be an opportunity for me to pivot out of recruiting and just solely focus on inclusion and diversity? This is something that is important to our industry. So you always want to think about the business case, right? Like this is something that is important to our industry. It can help our company generate revenue. This will help us represent more diverse clients. Therefore, we will have more of an impact, you know, across the industry. So I thought about ways that it could not only benefit me because I wanted to get into the position, but how could it benefit the company overall? And it just, you know, after a series of conversations, I was able to pivot and move into that role.
I agree. From me pivoting into more of the diversity, equity, inclusion role, or for LinkedIn specifically, diversity, inclusion, and belonging. Make sure you want to get into this work. Just because you're a person of color does not necessarily mean that you're going to be good at this work. This work is taxing, it's hard, it's complicated, it's exhausting, and the lifespan of us, it's not that long, just to be honest. So the passion behind it has to be there. If you want to transition into it, the ERG conversation is essential. Like that is one way of getting yourself involved in a DEI or D&I space. Make sure you do that. Make sure the whole conversation, what we've been talking about is how to get in, if that's your desire. Find the right people that are in those roles or that in that position and hear their story and get an understanding if this is really what you want to do and if you could do it. And the main point, if you're trying to create that role, because I similarly did something like that, at the end of the day, if the business is not seeing ROI for it, they're not going to create it. It's a great PR move for some companies. It's a great look. It's a great marketing tactic. But if there's no, if they can't see a financial ROI or a cultural ROI that's going to bring them that financial ROI, there's no point in having it. So make sure you do all that research, those conversations with people like us, and build your case to make sure that position is effective for that company. And if not, and that's your passion, then start networking to see what company you need to move to next.
That's so awesome. I think that was great. I want to first of all just thank our panelists so much for being a part of this session today. We're just so grateful, and I'm definitely going to ask you to give your closing thoughts for sure. But just want to tell people, if you want to connect with them on LinkedIn, here's their names. I'm going to put the LinkedIn again in the chat so that all of you can connect. I saw a couple of people that asked me about Circle of Change and how can they get involved with the Circle of Change Leadership Conference. If you can add me on LinkedIn, send me a message, I'll definitely reach out to you. We're always looking for volunteers and always looking for people to help. And so if you are interested, definitely put that information there. I will make sure that I reach out to you. If not by the end of this week, definitely early next week. So make sure you do that and make sure, spread the word to students and stuff like that. Also, I always like to talk about this. This is a RED leadership survey. Something that I started back in March, got to about 400 people thus far, but I'm on a mission to get 1,000. And it really revolves around what are the keys to retaining, engaging, and developing leaders, culturally diverse leaders of millennials, of the younger generation, millennials and Generation Z. So if you are a millennial, if you're Generation Z, if you know anyone, I would greatly appreciate it. If you could take the time to do this survey, it takes about 3 to 5 minutes. Already we saw some fascinating findings through the survey. So hoping that all of you can take the time to do that as well. So I just put that there. So if you have a phone, you can put that information there. I'm also going to put in the chat as well, all this information, LinkedIn, Circle of Change, as well as the RED Leadership Survey, as everyone gives their final thoughts. So Rashawn, we're going to start with you on my screen. You're on the far left. What are your closing thoughts that you want to leave with everyone today after this great discussion?
Don't compromise who you are for a role or company. It's easy during this pandemic to do that. It's easy to make it personal. It's easy as a Black man to do that, to conform just because we're trying to get in. Make sure you're ethical in your approach and what you're willing to give up. Make sure you connect with someone that's going to help elevate you. Like Prathan said, like, make sure you're not, you can't be the smartest person in your circle in a room. Like that's one key component I think that has kind of helped me become successful. Well, relatively successful. I hate being someone that I'm in a room and I feel like I'm it. It's not a good feeling because I know I'm not it. So make sure that you understand that as we continue. And you're never too advanced to learn. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how advanced in your career you are. There's always learning opportunities. And if you take advantage of those opportunities to learn and grow, then you'll provide space for the next person. If you continuously reach out to the people behind us or that we leave behind or that are below us, or even around us, just make sure that networking piece is holistic.
Awesome, Rashawn. Thank you so much for all your incredible information. Christina.
I'm just going to say this: know your worth and don't allow anyone else to determine that for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christina. Awesome. Prathan.
Well, you're way up the ladder. It's important to bring others with you. You don't want to get to the top of the mountain by yourself because you won't have allies. For all of my people I work with, those I mentor, I have a vested interest in seeing them become VPs and become CHROs because I may need a job. And so if I have a network of people who are also rising the ladder, I have more allies when I need that person to help me. So
thank you so much, Prathan. Fantastic. Yai.
I think during this time, it's important to, yes, rest, but also important is to upskill. So when you have a few moments a day or on the weekend, you should be teaching yourself how to use Slack, how to use Trello, how to master LinkedIn, how to find those mentors and sponsors. So yes, get some much needed rest during this time, but focus on doing a self-assessment of everything you already know, assessing what programs you should be knowing so that you can then position yourself to be that subject matter expert. And maybe even using some of those tools to make some extra cash. I've got a few interns that do all of my Canva and all of my Trello. So if you know how to use those tools, use that to your advantage and start selling that. And eventually you'll be known as the thought leader in that, and it'll help you make a couple of bucks.
Love it. I love it. Awesome, guy. Awesome. I want to just thank all of our panelists again so much for taking time out of their schedule to really just give back, paying it forward, to take the time. They're all very busy. They do incredible work. And so we're just grateful that they took the time to give back today. I just got to always say this. If you have opportunities, you're looking for speakers or you're looking for people to come on the campus consulting, all these people are available. So make sure you reach out to them. I'm sure they would love to even give back more. I encourage you to connect. We had an incredible line of people that spoke today, and I'm just so grateful for them. And they were men and women of color, which I think is even more awesome. So I'm just so grateful for them, and I'm so grateful for all of you coming on to join us today. Have an incredible rest of the week. We'll be back in 2 weeks dealing with a new topic. And so please be on the lookout for the email, and the recording will be up very shortly, probably in the next 3 days as well, for those that are interested in the recording. Again, thank the panel. Thank you all so much. It was a pleasure. It was an honor. Had a phenomenal time. Thank you for giving me a little 17 minutes extra as well, especially you, Christina, with your meeting. Tell them, please forgive me for that. But we appreciate you all. Have an incredible weekend, and be safe out there. And talk to y'all soon. Peace.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.